The rain was ice cold that night. My stepmother threw my bags on the street. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. I stood there soaking wet, watching my childhood home disappear behind me. I didn't know that the man in the black car watching me would change everything. Before we start, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't believe how this story unfolds. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Now, let me take you back to that terrible night. My name is Nicole, and I need you to understand something right from the start. I wasn't always the woman standing in the rain with everything she owned stuffed into 2 broken suitcases. 6 months before that night, I had a father who loved me. I had a home. I had a future that looked somewhat normal, even if it wasn't perfect. But death has a way of showing you who people really are, and when my father's heart gave out on a random Tuesday afternoon, the mask my stepmother had been wearing for 8 years came off real quick. Sharon married my dad when I was 14, 2 years after my mother passed from cancer. I remember being so desperate for a mother figure that I convinced myself Sharon's cold smiles were just her way of grieving her own past. She had a daughter, Brianna, who was 2 years younger than me, and I tried so hard to be a good sister to her. I shared my room, my clothes, my father's attention. I thought we were building something real. I was so stupid. After Daddy died, Sharon changed overnight. The woman who used to at least pretend to care about my day suddenly looked at me like I was a stranger squatting in her house. I was working double shifts at a diner downtown, trying to save money for community college, trying to stay out of her way. I thought if I just gave her time to grieve, things would get better. I thought I had time. I was wrong. I came home from my evening shift that night, my feet aching and my uniform smelling like grease and coffee. The moment I opened the door, I saw my suitcases, 2 of them, sitting by the entrance like unwanted guests. Sharon was standing there with her arms crossed, and Brianna was on the stairs behind her, watching with this look on her face that I still see sometimes in my nightmares. Not quite smiling, but close. Sharon didn't waste time on explanations. She said, "Your father's gone, Nicole. This is my house now. Everything in it belongs to me, including the space you're taking up." I remember my mouth going dry, my heart starting to pound in a way that made me dizzy. I asked her what she meant, even though I knew. Some part of me needed to hear her say it out loud. She told me I had 30 minutes to make sure I had everything I needed from my room because I wouldn't be coming back. I tried to argue. I mentioned my father's will, his wishes, the promises he'd made me. Sharon laughed, this sharp, cruel sound, and told me my father left everything to her, as his wife. She wasn't lying. Daddy had updated his will after they got married, trusting that Sharon would take care of me. He believed in her goodness. We both did. The worst part wasn't even the eviction. While I was upstairs grabbing what I could fit in those suitcases, I realized that the jewelry box my mother left me was gone. The photo albums from my childhood, gone. The quilt my grandmother made, gone. Sharon had already erased me from that house, sold off anything of value, and was just waiting for the right moment to throw me out completely. When I came back downstairs with my bags, Sharon was holding the front door open. It was pouring outside, the kind of rain that sounds angry, and she didn't care. She said, "You have your mother's stubbornness and your father's weak heart. You won't make it far." Then she shut the door in my face and I heard the lock click. I stood there on that porch for a few minutes, letting the rain soak through my work uniform, trying to figure out my next move. I had $127 in my bank account. I didn't have close friends because I'd been working so much I barely had time to maintain relationships. My father's family lived 3 states away and hadn't checked on me once since the funeral. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts, looking for anyone who might let me sleep on their couch, and came up empty. That's when I saw the headlights. A black car, expensive looking even in the rain, pulled up slowly and stopped right in front of the house. My first thought was to run. You grow up as a black woman in this world, and you learn real quick that strange cars and dark nights don't usually mean anything good. But my suitcases were heavy, I was already soaked, and honestly, I was too tired to care anymore. The driver's window rolled down, and I saw him. A black man, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and a concerned expression that seemed genuine. He asked me if I was all right, and something about the gentle way he said it made my throat tight. I told him I was fine, which was obviously a lie since I was standing in a thunderstorm with my entire life in 2 bags. He got out of the car with an umbrella and walked over to me, holding it over both of us. His name was Dominic Williams, and he told me later that he'd been driving past when he saw Sharon throw my bags out. He'd watched the whole thing from down the street, debating whether to interfere, and when he saw me just standing there in the rain, he couldn't drive away. He offered to take me somewhere safe, maybe a hotel or a shelter, and he promised he wasn't trying to hurt me or take advantage. He said, "I know you don't know me and you shouldn't trust me, but I can't leave you out here." I was raised to be suspicious of kindness from strangers, especially men, but I looked at this man, really looked at him, and saw something in his face that reminded me of my father. Not his features, but his energy. That same quiet strength, that same genuine concern, and I was desperate. So I got in the car. We drove through the rain in silence for a while. Dominic didn't push me to talk or explain. He just drove carefully, his hands steady on the wheel, occasionally glancing over to make sure I was okay. Eventually, we pulled up to a hotel, nothing fancy but clean and safe-looking. He went inside with me, paid for 3 nights at the front desk, and handed me the receipt along with a business card. The card said Williams Property Holdings with a phone number underneath. He told me that if I needed help finding a job or a place to stay after the 3 nights were up, I should call that number. I asked him why he was doing this, what he wanted from me, because in my experience, nobody gives without expecting something back. He smiled, this sad kind of smile, and said, "Someone helped me once when I had nothing. I'm just passing it forward." Then he left. Just walked out of that hotel lobby and drove away before I could even properly thank him. I stood there dripping water on the carpet, holding his business card, feeling like I'd just experienced something that didn't quite make sense in the world I knew. That night, I lay in the hotel bed and looked up Dominic Williams on my phone. What I found shocked me. The man who'd just rescued me from the rain was a billionaire real estate developer. He'd built his empire from nothing, starting with one rundown apartment building in Chicago and turning it into a massive company focused on affordable housing. Every article I read mentioned his philanthropy, his commitment to helping working families find quality homes, his programs for homeless youth. He'd been featured in magazines, interviewed on news programs, and called one of the most influential Black entrepreneurs in the country. I couldn't understand it. Why would someone that successful stop for someone like me? What did he see in that moment that made him care? The 3 days passed faster than I wanted them to. I spent every daylight hour walking around the city, filling out job applications, going to interviews. But every time I had to write down my address, I hesitated. I was essentially homeless, staying in a hotel room that would expire soon, and employers could sense the instability. I got rejection after rejection, each one making my chest feel tighter, my future feel smaller. On the 3rd night, I sat on that hotel bed staring at Dominic's business card. My pride told me not to call, that I'd already taken enough charity. But my survival instinct was louder. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. A warm-voiced woman named Angela answered. She was Dominic's assistant, and when I nervously explained who I was, she said, "Oh, Nicole, Mr. Williams told me you might call. Can you come to the office tomorrow at 10?" Just like that, no judgment, no questions about why I'd waited until the last minute. The next morning, I put on the one professional outfit I'd managed to stuff in my suitcase and took the bus to downtown Atlanta. Dominic's office building was beautiful, all glass and steel, the kind of place I never imagined I'd have business being in. Angela met me in the lobby with a genuine smile and took me up to the 20th floor. Dominic's office had a view of the entire city. He stood when I walked in, shook my hand professionally, and offered me a seat. We talked for an hour. He asked about my work history, my education, my goals. I was honest about everything, including my current situation. I told him about Sharon, about being homeless, about my desperation. I expected pity, but what I saw in his eyes was understanding. He offered me a position as an assistant property manager for his residential communities. The job would involve working with tenants, organizing community programs, helping families navigate their housing needs. It came with a decent salary and, most importantly, temporary housing in one of his apartment buildings until I could save up for my own place. I asked him why he was doing this, really doing this. He leaned back in his chair and said, "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep me and my sisters housed. She died at 52, exhausted and broken. I built this company in her honor to make sure other families don't have to struggle like we did. When I saw you in that rain, I saw every person who's ever been thrown away by someone who should have protected them. You remind me why I do this work." I started crying right there in his office. Not delicate tears, but the ugly kind, the kind that come from months of held-in pain finally finding a way out. Angela brought me tissues and water, and neither of them made me feel ashamed. Dominic just waited patiently until I could breathe again, then said, "So, do you want the job?" I said yes. The apartment Dominic provided was small but beautiful, with actual sunlight and a kitchen that worked and neighbors who said hello in the hallways. My first day of work, I met the team and started learning about the communities we managed. These weren't just buildings, they were homes for working families, single mothers, elderly folks on fixed incomes, people like me who just needed a stable foundation to build from. I discovered I was good at this work. Really good. I understood what these tenants needed because I'd been there. I knew the fear of eviction notices, the shame of not having enough, the desperate hope that things might get better. I created programs for youth mentorship, organized tenant appreciation events, started a community garden. The residents responded to my genuine care, and within months, our communities had waiting lists of families wanting to live there. Dominic and I had weekly check-in meetings that started lasting longer and longer. Professional discussions about occupancy rates and maintenance requests would drift into personal conversations about our childhoods, our losses, our dreams. I learned that his mother had died just 2 months before he closed his first major deal, that he'd never gotten to show her what he built in her name. He learned about my mother's love of gardening, my father's terrible jokes, the family I'd lost twice. We both tried to maintain boundaries. He was my boss, after all, and I needed this job too desperately to risk it. But there was something growing between us that felt inevitable, like a river that's going to reach the ocean no matter how many rocks you put in its path. After 4 months, Dominic promoted me to Community Development Director. Some employees whispered about favoritism, suggested I'd gotten ahead through means other than merit. It hurt. But Angela shut down the gossip fast, showing them the data on tenant satisfaction rates, renewal percentages, and community engagement numbers. My results spoke for themselves. Then Sharon showed up. I was having lunch at a nice restaurant downtown, celebrating a successful grant application with my team, when I saw her walk in with Brianna. The shock on Sharon's face when she recognized me was almost worth everything she'd put me through. I was wearing a blazer that actually fit, my hair was done professionally, and I was laughing with colleagues who respected me. I looked successful because I was. Sharon made her way over to our table with this fake smile plastered on her face. She said, "Nicole, look at you! I always knew you'd land on your feet." Brianna stood behind her, eyes full of jealousy, looking me up and down like she was trying to calculate my worth. Sharon started talking about how family is family, how she'd been meaning to reach out, how she hoped there were no hard feelings. I stood up, looked her directly in the eyes, and said, "You made your choice when you threw me out in the rain. I've made mine by building a life without you." Then I excused myself from the table and walked away. My hands were shaking, but my voice had been steady, and that felt like victory. Sharon tried one more time, showing up at my office weeks later, claiming she wanted to invest in Dominic's company, asking if I could put in a good word. Dominic happened to be there when she arrived, and he listened to her pitch with a polite, cold expression. When she finished, he thanked her for her interest and told her we weren't looking for investors at this time. After she left, he asked me if I was okay. I told him I was better than okay because I'd finally learned the difference between people who are related to you and people who are actually family. That conversation shifted something between us. Dominic admitted he'd been fighting his feelings for me since the beginning, trying to be professional and appropriate, but he couldn't pretend anymore. He said, "That night in the rain, I saw someone worth saving. Every day since, I've discovered someone worth knowing, worth admiring, worth loving." I told him I felt the same way. We took things slow, keeping our relationship quiet at first, making sure it didn't affect our work or the company. But eventually, it became impossible to hide and unnecessary to try. We were two people who'd found each other in the worst moment of my life and built something real through respect, shared values, and genuine connection. A year after that rainy night, Dominic and I launched a foundation in honor of both our mothers. We created programs specifically for young people who'd lost parents, providing scholarships, housing assistance, and mentorship. We hired counselors who understood grief, built support groups, and made sure no kid felt as alone as we'd both felt. I never heard from Sharon again after that day in my office. I don't know if she ever understood what she threw away, and honestly, I don't care anymore. She taught me that I didn't need her approval or her love to build a beautiful life. She taught me that cruelty can be a catalyst for transformation if you refuse to let it break you. Standing here now, running a foundation that helps thousands of people, engaged to a man who sees my worth every single day, I think about that girl in the rain sometimes. I want to go back and tell her that the worst night of her life was actually the beginning of everything good. I want to tell her that the home she lost wasn't her real home anyway. That real home is something you build inside yourself, with people who choose to love you properly. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Drop a comment below telling me about a time when a stranger's kindness changed your life. I read every single one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their current struggle isn't their final destination. Remember, your breakthrough might be one rainy night away. I'll see you in the next story.